As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my retro gaming podcast where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and we geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And this week it is episode 166. And we're going back to the early 90s. We're going to have a puke green screen. We're playing video games on the toilet. And it's the debut of one of the bigger names in Nintendo history. It's Kirby. We're talking Kirby's Dream Land on the good old original Game Boy. I've told this story many times, but this game just occupies its permanent residency in one of the back corners of my memory because this is the very first game that I ever bought with my own money when I was way back when I was just a wee little angry Adam. I saved up all my birthday money, Christmas money. We went to Toys R Us. It took me fucking forever to make a decision. Remember we used to have to pick at Toys R Us? I don't know what it was like where you lived, but we used to have to all they had was the paper. And you would take that little sheet of blue and yellow paper up to the counter to get your game. So that's what you were picking from. And finally, after all this hemming and hawing, I pulled the switch and I got Kirby's Dream Land for my Game Boy because the ads and everything that I'd seen, they'd worked on my impressionable little mind. I was so excited. And then I beat it the night I got home. And I was in an hour. And I was crushed. I was just crushed. But it's not that it's a bad game, but So anyway, my buddy Patrick is going to make his triumphant return to the podcast this week. He's a Game Boy junkie, a Game Boy collector. And when he asked if I wanted to talk Kirby's Dream Land, I was all over it. It's time to exercise those demons. So it's not a bad game. It's very easy. It's quick and painless. All right. It's quick and painless. So we'll get to Kirby's Dream Land in just a minute because speaking of quick and painless, it's time for yet another edition of the Remember the Game infamous intro. Dun, 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 dun. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. Consider this your warning. Our intros are painless. Maybe not quick, though. They're fun. We talk video games. We have some laughs. It's zany. And I know you might be thinking, why does it have to be zany? Shout out to anyone that gets that reference, but that's what it is. So I will say, again, I replayed Kirby's Dream Land this week just to get ready for this podcast. And it actually takes a little longer to beat than it does to listen to our intro. So Kirby's Dream Land is a short game, but it's longer than the infamous intro. So that gives you an idea of how long you're going to be waiting, all right? We have merch. We have new merch. We have hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, all kinds of fun stuff. Rockin' sweet Remember the Game art drawn by my man Joe over at 4545creative.com. Show him a little bit of love. And you can find our merchandise at rememberthegamepodcast.com if you're interested. And it's not just stuff referencing our podcast. We have the Angry Adam logo. We have the hot dog sign logo. But then we have our video game matchups lineup. We have our Dreamcast Never Forget t-shirts over there. Our gaming console, or our console War Veteran shirt is over there. Lots of fun retro gaming stuff if you're interested. Always putting up new designs and things like that. So this is a great way to support the show if you're interested. And of course, if you don't like clothes, you could always just support us over on Patreon. It's for as little as $2 a month. $2 a month, like pennies a day. You get 2 additional podcasts every single week. You'll get exclusive access to both my gaming discussion podcast, Expansion Pass, every Thursday, and my gaming news podcast, Game Patch, every Friday. You'll also get instant access to well over 100 bonus podcasts that are sitting there in the archives. Every week on Game Patch, we just look at all the biggest news in modern gaming, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. I add in my opinions, a little bit of profanity, stuff like that. And then Expansion Pass is a different podcast every week. Sometimes we do game rankings. Sometimes we look back at certain characters, certain consoles. We've talked about who's supposed to be on gaming's Mount Rushmore. We've done some comedy-centric episodes, which is what we did this week. This past episode of Expansion Pass was Gaming Confessions Part 2. Last year, our listeners confessed their game shames, and I judged them all on the podcast, and it's become one of our most popular episodes. And so a year later, we decided to do it again. And 8-Bit Bovie wrote in on Patreon and said, dude, holy crap. Episode number 77 was a fucking roast. So glad I didn't write in. Well done, sir. Fucking well done. Thanks, 8-Bit. I also think it was well done. And as is, to suck my own dick a little bit, as is becoming tradition, here is a sneak peek of last week's Expansion Pass, episode 77, Gaming Confessions Part 2. Joe Gillespie wrote in and said, this isn't me, but it is my wife, and it is hilarious. She always thought the turtles in Super Mario Brothers were ducks because some of them had wings. I was like, they have shells and beaks. What the fuck?
Oh, you... Oh, God. Choking on my own rage here.
Joe, me too, guy. Come on. God, Joe, that one triggered. The other ones I was giving a hard time. That one triggered me a little bit. Your fucking wife should be at this meeting confessing this. Or, you know what? She should be at the fucking library reading about turtles. Just, that's fucking... I thought they were ducks because they had wings. First of all, tons of animals have wings. Second of all, there's not a single bird that has a fucking shell. That's not hilarious. That's fucking ridiculous. I can't let that go. That's fucking ridiculous. No. Jesus Christ. Wow, fuck me. Dave wrote in and said, I've been listening and supporting since day one, and I need to tell the hot dogs my truth. I only listen to the intro. The only episode I will listen to more than the intro of is Solomon's Key. That's fucked up. You only listen to the infamous intro. Dave, there wasn't even an infamous intro for the first 100 episodes. What the fuck were you paying for? Where you just, do you go to the movies and just watch the previews? So that was last week's Expansion Pass, and now for this week, I feel like talking gaming comfort food. I've had a crazy couple weeks in my personal life. It's just been really hectic, and sometimes you just want to play that game that you've already played a million times. It's like an old pair of sweatpants. It's just comfort gaming. So that's going to be what we're going to talk about on tomorrow's episode of Expansion Pass. So again, $2 gets you instant access to all the old episodes, plus new ones every Thursday and Friday, plus access to the Remember the Game Discord, the chance to vote in our Patreon poll at the beginning of every month, the ability to submit comments to be read on all of our shows. You can DM with me, and you get a shout out and get to hear me mispronounce your name like I'm about to do to most of these people. A huge thank you to all of our newest Patreons, Andrew Lowhouse, Darth Yako, Alan M., Brandon McLean, Frosty Feet 492, Scott A. Baker, Britt O'Neill, and Riley Jones. I think I only fucked up like 2 of those. But either way, thank you all so much. Welcome to Remember the Game Industries. You can find it at patreon.com patreon.com/rememberthegame. And we have a P.O. box. If you feel like sending me just a letter, a postcard, something small, I'll send you a postcard back. We'll be friends. You can find that address at rememberthegamepodcast.com. And you can find me over on the old Twitch streaming service. I'm on there on occasion. Look for Remember the Game over at twitch.tv. I pop in there when I can. I don't even look for your subs. I've turned down affiliate status. I'm not trying to take any more of your money. Just a way for me to hang out with the community and shoot the shit. So follow me over there. It'll tell you when I'm online. You can come by and say hi. All right, that'll do. That'll be enough blowing myself. Let's blow some of you by blowing in the cartridge. It is our official opening segment here on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our Patreons, usually gaming related, but not always. And we call this segment Blowing in the Cartridge.
He blows all right. He blows big time.
That's it, honey. Get into the spirit.
So let's blow, and we're actually going to start off with one last gamer confession. One of our regular hot dogs, a longtime supporter of the show, missed out on the Gaming Confessions episode last week and wrote in and said, boy, I suck at this. Mercury 869. That should not be hard to say. My gaming confession. I'm illiterate, apparently. Mercury 869. That would explain so much about my inability to fucking just read a comment normally without fucking it all up. Maybe I am. Anyway, okay. Mercury869 wrote in and said, "Hey, bud, as you know, I missed writing my confession and I'm rather chapped by it. I know it's my own fault, but decorum be damned, you're getting a confession. You can read it aloud or to yourself. I don't care. So here it goes. My name is Merc, and I'm an active World of Warcraft player. I enjoy playing this game as it introduced me to some absolutely amazing people who I've actually met up with. The game and the entire MMO genre gets some heat, but this game has been really good to me, and I enjoy the encounters that are put into it, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Now that I got that off my chest, you may resume regular programming." And that's exactly what I would have said if you had gotten into the gamer confession. There was a whole, you probably would have gotten a lot worse. You're lucky I don't have time to fucking light you up. You World of Warcraft nerds. Anyway, thanks Mercury for writing in. Quest wrote in on Patreon and said, "Been playing through Resident Evil 4 on my PS4 and I'm loving it. I got it in a bundle with Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, and I just bought Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes in a separate bundle. What other series do you recommend playing in their entirety? I love series that give a completely new setting or experience with each title, such as Final Fantasy or Pokemon. On the flip side, are there any series that, in your opinion, get progressively worse as they continued?" That's a good, you know what, Quest? That's a good question. Get it? Question from Quest? First and foremost, I should just warn you, look out for Resident Evil 6. That game, that game is like that, you know, after you've thrown up a type of booze, that's Resident Evil 6 is trying to drink the drink you've thrown up too many times. I hate that fucking game. But other than that, you're in good hands. I can't think of too many series that I've played all of myself. I played the original Mega Mans. I'll definitely recommend those. Mario Kart, Mario, Donkey Kong. I've played most of the Resident Evils. Okay, on Xbox, I'll recommend playing through Gears of War. It's not a new setting every time. Like, you should play them in order to know the franchise, but they're great. I fucking love Gears of War. I've played all those. And then on PlayStation, I'll stand behind the Uncharted games. Same thing. I don't know if you've got to play all the previous Uncharteds to know all of them. They're like Indiana Jones. I mean, I don't think there's too much continuity from one game to another, but those will be two that I recommend. I can't think of another series that kind of starts over every time and stands alone off the top of my head. Yeah, Resident Evil is probably a good call. And then as far as the series that I think has gotten worse as they've continued, you know what popped into my head right away? Madden. And I know this may be a bit of a cheap shot, but like old school Madden's great. And then it just womp, womp, womp. So I'll say Madden. I think Resident Evil was headed that way, to be honest with you, and then I think it bounced back with 7. I haven't played 8 yet, but my understanding is that 8 is fucking rad. Village, whatever you want to call it. But I thought 7 was... I think 7 stands up with 4 as the best in the series. So that was headed there. What other series has gotten worse as it's gone on? Oh, dude. Mega Man X. Blah. I don't care what anyone... The original Mega Man X is the greatest Mega Man game of all time, and then it was like a little bit of a step off, and then just wah, wah, wah. I think a lot of Final Fantasy fans would say Final Fantasy's gotten worse too, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't know all the Final Fantasies. So anyway, those are my suggestions, Quest. Good luck, and again, fucking look out for Resident Evil 6 because it's scary and not in a good way. Emily Luna wrote in on Patreon and said, "Hey, Adam, so the other week you did an Expansion Pass podcast on what we miss about the retro gaming era, but what's something you don't miss? As an aside, I'm also loving your new podcast release schedule. It makes the end of my work week a lot better. Well, thanks, Emily. If you don't know, for the longest time, Expansion Pass went live on Sunday, and now I've changed it to release podcasts on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, depending on what level of our Patreon you're at. So that I can go on the road for comedy on the weekend. So it seems like it's going pretty well for everybody. So I'm glad to hear that, Emily. And I actually want to do an episode of Expansion Pass in the near future about stuff we don't miss about retro gaming. Because you're right, just a couple weeks ago, for those of you that don't know, we did do an episode of Expansion Pass where we talked about things we do miss about gaming back in the day that isn't a thing anymore. And we are eventually going to do one about stuff we don't miss about gaming back in the day that's better now. And you know what? My quick answer for your question is being able to do more homework so that you don't spend all your money or your birthday money on a fucking game like Kirby's Dream Land only to beat it on the drive home from the fucking store. If I had had the internet and stuff back then to look it up, I would have seen that it's a good game, but it's incredibly quick and easy. And I probably wouldn't have spent my fucking life savings at the time that I was 10 years old on that fucking game. So that's something I miss. And it's funny because I said something I don't miss or something I do miss about, what are we talking about? Don't missing or do missing? Don't do what Johnny don't does or whatever Donnie don't, whatever the fuck it was. Anyway, shout out to anyone that gets that fucked up Simpsons reference. And I just said it was Simpsons. That ruins the... This is maybe the worst episode of Remember the Game. 166. You'd think I'd be getting good at this by now. Okay, so... on the episode where we talked about stuff we do miss about retro gaming, a bunch of us said we kind of miss, being surprised by a game and not knowing everything about it before we got our hands on it. And I do miss that as well. But on the flip side, something I don't miss is spending all my money on a game without being able to do a little bit of homework and research on it first. It's nice to be able to look up countless reviews and things and see, oh, this game doesn't fucking work. Don't buy it before you go out and buy it. So there you go. But we are going to do a full episode on that soon, Emily. Thank you for the question and for writing in. Master Boig wrote in and said, Adam, I always get a kick out of the little voices and impersonations that you break into on the show. There are podcasts from other hosts that I've just given up on after 5 minutes because the host is just so lifeless. I imagine you work different character voices into your stand-up comedy as well. Were you a kid who was known for celebrity or cartoon character impressions growing up? Anyway, I'm not sure if I'm the first one to mention this, but sometimes when you get fired up, I hear a bit of Gilbert Gottfried in your voice. You may be familiar with his stand-up, but for me, he's always been the guy who voiced Lago, the parrot in Aladdin. Have you ever attempted an impression of that famously distressed parrot? I think you could pull it off. Maybe embrace this vocal likeness and make a logo in a backwards flex-fitted hat with the new mascot of Remember the Game. The t-shirts practically make themselves. You're welcome. Well, thanks, Boig. You know what? Okay, so I am familiar with Gilbert Gottfried. His stand-up is actually very funny, but I also, when I think of him, I think of the parrot from Aladdin, whose name I can't pronounce, and I also think of him from Problem Child. We had Problem Child 2 when I was a kid on VHS, and there's a scene where he's on a date at this restaurant with this hot girl, and the main kid is fucking with him, and he's, you disgusting kid, that fucking voice it is. I can't do Gilbert Gottfried. I have heard that before, but I can't do Gilbert Gottfried. To answer your question, I don't work a lot of voices into my stand-up act today, but when I was a kid, I did tons. Puberty wrecked my voice, man. It wrecked it. When I was little, that was what I used to do when I was a kid. I used to do all kinds of impressions. I used to do Steve Urkel was a big one of mine that I can't do anymore. Full House, for those of you that grew up on Full House like I did, Joey had that fucking show where he controlled that woodchuck puppet, and I used to do the, is it made out of wood? That fucking voice. It's probably just cringy now, but I used to be pretty good at that voice. And then Simpsons. I used to do tons of Simpsons impressions. I used to do Moe. I used to do Mayor Quimby. I used to do Chief Wiggum, Grandpa Simpson, Krusty the Clown, Barney Gumble. The squeaky voice teenager. I can't do as many of them as I used to because puberty, again, has just not been kind to me. But Mayor Diamond, Joe Quimby. And this is my podcast about video games. And then, you got the stink lines and everything there. That's Mo. And then, I don't know, Homer. I'm worried about the beer supply. After this case, in the other case, there's only one case left. That's Barney. And I used to be better at Barney, too. And, that's Krusty. It's funny, all I can really do is the Krusty moan. When I try to talk, it doesn't work, but So anyway, yeah, I used to do a lot of Simpsons voices, but I can't do as many of them anymore. But thanks, Boy. I'm glad that you guys, I always worried that my voice was like nails on a chalkboard. So I'm glad at least one of you likes it. And I can't decide if it's a compliment or if it hurts my heart to be told that sometimes I sound like Gilbert Gottfried. Chalupa Cabra wrote in and said, "Hey Adam, last month I picked up the South Park games per your recommendation. I absolutely loved Stick of Truth, and I'm really enjoying the Fractured Butthole so far." I fucking love that name. I'd been on the fence about them for a while, so thank you for being the deciding factor in me making the purchase. I need to convince some of these game developers to pay me a royalty for all these fucking games that I sell on the goddamn podcast. Chalupa Cabra continues. My question for you revolves around class selection in RPGs. It seems like no matter what RPG I pick up, I always find myself gravitating to the strong tank-like classes. I've tried other classes, but to me they're just not as fun as having the ability to pull a Leroy Jenkins and plow into mobs of enemies and come out relatively unscathed. Do you have a preferred class type to play, or do you try to mix it up for each game? Thanks for all the great work. I'm not gonna lie to you, Chalupa Cabra. A majority of the games that I play, I'm kind of stuck with whatever they get. Like a lot of the RPGs I like are like the Super Nintendo era ones, where like Final Fantasy IV, Earthbound. I guess Super Mario RPG, they gave you a little bit of customization, but by and large, I just play what the game gives me to play as. But otherwise, I always want a tank and I always want a healer. I would probably, if I have the ultimate choice of whatever I want to play, then I usually play the healer. Like I used to be pretty big into Overwatch for a while. Fuck, I suck so hard at that game now. But when I played Overwatch, my main was Mercy. Because I'm not very good, so I would be the one that just hid in the background and just healed everyone and pumped them up. And I used to get like all kinds of player of the game votes and stuff, because I would take one for the team and just do my job, like to be a good healer. So I guess if you have to like, what type of class do I play as? I traditionally stick to the support group, because that way I can hide in the shadows. A couple more here. We'll move on. Brandon McLean wrote in and said, "What's your take on the WATA debacle? Personally, I think it's overinflating retro prices, making it harder than it already was with the mid-pandemic bubble. It would be interesting to hear from an ex-collector's standpoint." So I have talked about this a little bit in the past. If you don't know, really quickly, and I highly recommend you look up more information about it that I'm about to give you. But there's a company called WATA, W-A-T-A, who grades video games. You know how you can get like sports cards and comic books and stuff graded? They put them in these slabs. They give them a rating out of 10 or out of 100 or whatever of how good a shape they're in. And then it's supposed to like dramatically increase the value of whatever that item is. And it does work with sports cards. And I get it with stuff like sports cards, because you can still see both sides of the card. You can still read it. You can still admire the art on the front. But it's protected and it'll never be hurt, and it has a substantial jump on the value. But now this company named WATA, they've started grading video games, especially sealed, unopened boxed video games, and they're going for literally millions of dollars at times. And now it's coming out, more and more evidence is coming out that WATA and the website Heritage Auctions, where a lot of these big games are selling, are kind of in bed together, and they're kind of artificially creating a market and running up the pricing in the market, to kind of take advantage of rich dumbasses that want to buy sealed video games thinking that they're going to cash in. And I'll be honest with you, Brandon, like, sure, the price of retro games has gone up insanely and it's fucking ridiculous. And like a big part of the reason I don't collect anymore is because I'm like, I'm not paying $40 for a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3 or insert common game here. You can go fuck yourself. This sealed thing I think is absolutely ridiculous, and I think that WATA is a bunch of greasy pieces of shit, as I've said before, and I have no time for them at all, and I'm not even remotely interested in giving them a dime of my money. But I will say that I don't think it's having as big effect on the regular retro gaming market as it might seem. I think that the retro gaming market is just exploding because everybody thinks everything old is worth infinite dollars. I think that this sealed market is a whole, I think 99% of gamers have no interest in this fucking graded sealed game market. And that part of it might be because we can't play the games. And part of it is probably because most of us don't have millions of dollars. What this is fucking rich people that don't know anything about video games thinking that they're going to buy them up and then we're going to come pay them for them later. And the joke's on them, because 99% of us are going to be like, we don't want your fucking $2 million copy of Super Mario Brothers that we already own on 1,200 consoles. Go fist yourself. So I think WATA is greasy. I think Heritage Auctions is greasy. I don't like either one. I don't trust either one. I'll never give either one a dime. And I think it's a fake market they've created to take advantage of rich people. And I think most gamers see right through it and have no fucking interest in them whatsoever. That's my quick thoughts. But if you don't know anything about it, I highly recommend, there's a YouTube video about it. I highly recommend you look it up. It's very, very interesting stuff. They're fucking sleazebags. And finally, before we move on from this segment, it's letter time. And Grim Reaper wrote in and said, "Hey Adam, I know you're a big retro gamer, and of course that comes with the occasional being a pirate. What do you think of the Steam Deck for emulation as we get closer to its release date?" So that's something that's been coming up a lot. If you don't know, I can't imagine too many people listening to this don't know anything about it. But I guess if you don't know, Valve, who owns Steam, the PC gaming store, is releasing a handheld console. I guess it looks like a giant Nintendo Switch near the end of the year. And basically, it's a portable PC. It's called the Steam Deck. We've labeled it the Steamer here at Remember the Game Industries because Steam Deck sounds too much like dick, and there's nothing funny about calling something a steamer at all. And it's been interesting because a lot of our regular PC players that listen to the podcast have been like, I'm not really even that interested in this thing. A lot of people like myself that are interested in PC gaming but are terrified of using a PC, I'm kind of interested in it. It does sound a little complicated and I'm computer illiterate, but it sounds like a really cool idea. Emulation is big, man. I think that's going to be a big deal, Grim, and I'm very interested to see what happens if Nintendo in particular, I know they're not the only ones with retro games, but Nintendo in particular, I'm curious to see if more of their games come to market over the next few months, because if they don't, and I'm just pulling a name out of my hat, Super Mario RPG. That's a game that everyone's asking for, and the reason it's not on the SNES Online is because Nintendo doesn't just own it outright, because they teamed up with Squaresoft back in the day to make it, so there's a whole bunch of loops and hoops to jump through and draw and all the shit they have to do. But like when this steamer comes out, if emulation run, and it sounds like there's no reason emulation wouldn't work on it, it's like, well, I can just play Super Mario RPG anywhere I want for free. And Earthbound, and Pokemon, and Final Fantasy, and Chrono Trigger, and basically all of the big old school RPGs, which are the number one games most people are asking to see emulated that haven't been emulated yet. So I don't know. I'm not, listen, I've said it many times. My stance on emulation has always been, if you give me a legitimate and reasonable way to purchase your game and get the money into the pockets of the developer, the publisher, the rights holders, I usually will buy it over emulating. I just played through Kirby's Dream Land to get ready for this episode. I could have easily emulated it. I bought it on my 3DS for $4 off the eShop and played it that way because I believe in that. I'm like, I'm a creator myself, so I believe in that. If I can pay you for something, I will. But these games that aren't available anywhere, like right now, if you I'm using Chrono Trigger as an example. If you want to go out and buy a cartridge of Chrono Trigger, that's not fucking cheap. And the PSN port of Chrono Trigger fucking sucks. So if I can emulate it on my Steamer and play the good Super Nintendo version and not have to give a reseller at the flea market $250 for it, I'm probably going to do that. I don't really have a problem with that. So I don't have a problem with emulation on the Steam Deck. I am interested to see how Nintendo and them counter it. And I don't really have an answer for you as far as how I think they're going to counter it. Because on one hand, I'm like, Nintendo will be stupid to not try to at least get a piece of that pie before everything becomes free and easy to play. But on the other hand, I'm like, Nintendo just added Bluetooth support to their Switch in 2021. So they might not even know the fucking they might not know the Steam Deck fucking exists. They might think it's an iron or something, knowing fucking Nintendo. So thanks for writing in, Grim Reaper, and thank you to everyone that blew in my cartridge this week. I very much appreciate it. Let's change things up and get into our Smash It segment, the official game show of Remember the Game Industries. Play one, remake one, erase one. And a huge thank you to Classic Concentration from the NES for unknowingly providing us with the theme music for the show. The rules are simple. Every week I give our listeners 3 retro video games. They can play one as it was released, they can remake one as a modern game, and the third game is erased from time forever. And quickly, if you're wondering why I do the 3, I did that once as like a stupid joke, and it just kind of stuck, and people were like, yo, you should keep doing it that way. So I guess that's how I'm going to say the number 3 now, but only in that segment, no other times. Plus, like, every once in a while, I fuck it up. My tongue doesn't roll, and I just 3, and I sound fucking dumb. Anyway, okay. So that's what we're doing. Play one, remake one, erase one. As always, there are no wrong answers. There is a right one. We'll get there in just a minute. And we're talking Kirby on the show this week with Kirby's Dream Land, so I thought we'd run a Kirby-centric episode of Play One, Remake One, Erase One, and we can go with his marquee title from each of Nintendo's early consoles. Kirby's Adventure for the NES, Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo, and Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, for the Nintendo 64. And first off, a huge shout out to every single one of you that wrote in on our Patreon to play this week that didn't say the premier Kirby title on the Super Nintendo is Kirby's Dream Course, because I would have written your fucking asses up if anyone had said that. So thank you. Now, every time I come up with a Play One, Remake One, Erase One combo, I always hope the poll's going to be close. I try to make it hard for people to choose. It's getting difficult to find 3 games that line up in the similar theme, that are all kind of on the same level as far as quality goes, that haven't all got these giant remakes already. It's getting very difficult to do. And it looks like I kind of pooped the bed this week. It was kind of a dud with over 50% of the vote. And keep in mind, there's 6 options. So to get 50+% of the vote out of 6 potential choices is massive. Play Kirby Superstar, remake Kirby's Adventure, and erase Kirby 64 came out on top. Ran away with it this week. And to add to the lack of suspense in this week's episode, that's what I would do. This isn't one of those weeks where I'm like, the majority of you are wrong, this is the right answer. I would come along with all of you. So this might be the worst play one, remake one, erase one ever. Anyway, we'll see what a few of you had to say before I explain my logic. And look at this. Right off the gate, I knew there'd be at least one person that would write in and end up on double secret probation for disobeying the rules. And we're going to come right out of it and get it out of the way with Jared, last name I can't pronounce, Bushlian? Sorry, Jared. You know what? You don't even get your last name pronounced correctly because you're on double secret probation. Because Jared wrote in and said, all right, hear me out. Kirby Adventure was remade for the GBA, and a newer Switch version to introduce Kirby to everyone is great. Superstars is a great game as it is, and the games outside of the original NES, and those remakes are the better games. All right? That's what you said. So hear me out, Jared. Double secret probation. You need to respect the rules. It's not that you said anything wrong. All your logic and everything is fine, but you didn't say which one you'd play, which one you'd remake, and which one you'd erase, which is the whole point of the game. You can't just sit in contestants row and ogle fucking Drew Carey or Bob Barker. At some point, you gotta place a bid. So fucking take a hike, Jared. Double secret probation. Son of a bitch. Jerry Robinson wrote in and said, Kirby needs some love. I would play Adventure, remake Superstar. It was my very first console. And I can use the remake on the current gen. And then I would erase Nintendo 64. I never played it, so it can leave. And here's the thing. I usually say don't erase a game you haven't played. Give it a chance and play it first. But between my not overall love of Kirby and my disdain for the Nintendo 64 controller, I have zero qualms with the idea of erasing Kirby 64. And you're right. Every one of you that wrote in and said Kirby Superstar and Kirby Adventure are both awesome games. They are. They're both, even if you're a modern day player that doesn't like Kirby, I'm telling you, those two games are well worth your time. They're both great. We actually have episodes in the archives about both of them too, if you're interested. Troy wrote in and said, I would play Kirby's Adventure. A charming 8-bit Kirby game is something everybody needs exposure to, and the games have progressively fallen off the rails. I would remake Kirby 64. Ooh. I played the shit out of this game in grade 8 and loved trying to mix and match all the powers. I think this game would look amazing with a remake as well, and erase Kirby Superstars. It's just a collaboration of small Kirby games, and I think we can just do away with it. I think I could fucking just do away with you, Troy, you fucking... No, I can live with your logic. You grew up with Kirby 64. You're like, I'm nostalgic for it. I understand that. Kirby Superstar is the best Kirby game ever, and I'll die on that. I won't die in the hill because I don't like Kirby enough to die, but it's fucking great. It is a compilation of mini games, but they're great fucking games. They're really, ooh, fucking Troy. At least you respected the rules, so single secret probation for you. Darth Yakko. Is it Yakko? Dude, Darth, you gotta DM me. Let me know if Yakko is from Wacko, Yakko, and Dot from the Animaniacs. Because, trivia note, if you didn't know, Yakko is the reason I wear my hat backwards. Because as a kid, I thought Yakko was fucking awesome. Darth wrote in and said, play Superstar, remake Kirby 64, and erase Kirby's Adventure. Kirby Superstar to Kirby's Adventure is like what Mario World is to Super Mario Bros. 3, a game amped up in every way possible. In Kirby 64, I liked when you mix two power-ups and get a mixture of two different elements in one, like bomb plus ice, needle plus cutter, etc. So there's another person. You guys are making me wonder if Kirby 64 is worth my time getting my hands on to play it or not. I'm not the world's biggest Kirby fan. I do agree that I think Kirby Superstar is an upgraded version of Kirby Adventure, but I'm not willing to write off Kirby's Adventure. I fucking love that game. Fake McHugh wrote in and said, play Kirby Superstar because it's great. Remake Kirby's Adventure just with small updates, and 64 can jump on a star and go to another world. In the early days of 3D, it was good, but it hasn't aged well. You'd have to snort some crystal shards to want to keep playing this game. I read that just for the snorting crystal shards thing. Plus, that hit a little home to me. It's my problem. I'll deal with it. And Craig Sutherland wrote in and said, play Kirby Superstar. This game has a lot of variety, so it stands as is and doesn't need a remake. Given its 16-bit aesthetic, it looks great as it is as well. Remake Kirby's Adventure. This is a great game that would get a real boost from a remake, and taking things from Kirby's various outings since its creation could very well become one of the best Kirby games ever if this remake was handled correctly. And then erase Kirby 64. This is an awkward step as many 64-era games were. I think we can safely erase this one and lose nothing in the process. There were so many other good Kirby games before and even after it that this one can go. Yeah, I agree 100% with your order. Not necessarily all of the logic, most of it though. Actually, you know what? 90% of your logic I fucking agree with as well, Craig. Because like I said, I'm siding with the majority this week myself. I want to be one of the cool kids. So I personally will play Kirby Superstar because as I've said every time Kirby comes up, as I said countless time on the Kirby Superstar episode of Remember the Game, not only did I own it as a kid and just have a really, I just love it. It's a great compilation package of games. There's some really good games in there. I think it is straight up one of the best looking games on the Super Nintendo. It was one of the last Kirby games that wasn't completely just for babies. Dude, if you've not played Kirby's Adventure, especially on the NES, that game will, it's not fucking Mega Man, but that game will fuck you up if you give it a chance. And I liked it like that. So I'll play Kirby Superstar because I think it's as playable today as it was back then. I'll remake Kirby's Adventure as well because as much as Kirby's Adventure for my money, top, maybe not in my personal top 5 favorite NES games, but from a quality and shine point, it is one of the best NES games ever made. It pushes the NES to its limit. It came out right near the end of the NES. Plays great. There's so much depth to it. It's just a little bit difficult. Not really going to hurt you, but it'll make you try a little bit. It's so fucking good. So I would remake Kirby's Adventure and just make it basically run smoother because it chugs on the NES because it's pushing the NES so hard. So I don't even know if I would change anything else about it other than I would call like Kirby's Adventure DX and just clean it up. And then I'd erase Kirby 64. Normally I try my best to not erase games that I haven't played, but between the fact that it's the Nintendo 64 and the fact that it's Kirby, which I'm like, meh, and then more importantly than those two factors, the fact that I really truly love Kirby's Adventure and Kirby Superstar and Kirby 64 just not for me. It's got to go. Tough cheese. Although now I'm kind of tempted to track down a cartridge and play it at some point. So there you go. Leave it to fucking Kirby to produce the lamest play one, remake one, erase one ever. Fucking Kirby. Just, oh God, fucking everyone fucking gets to play in Kirby's Dreamland. Ooh, there's no one gets erased around here. I'm Kirby with my friend Blowy Tree. Fucking Kirby. Fucking fat little wiener. Anyway. That'll do it for Play One, Remake One, Erase One. What have I been playing over the last week? And then we'll talk some Kirby's Dream Land. Still primarily Final Fantasy X. I really am starting to get close to the game now. I'm not going to do a ton of the extra stuff, but I am getting pretty close to finishing it. I haven't had a lot of time to play. I had 4 comedy shows in 5 nights and a long drive to get to one of them over the past week. So I've been bringing my Switch on the road to play it. And then I've been playing a little bit of Deathloop on my PS5. But now that I'm home for the next couple weeks, I'm going to put some time into Deathloop. It's just the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are not practical for taking on the road whatsoever. Especially the fucking PS5. It almost needs its own fucking suitcase. So I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and play them, but now I'm home for a couple of weeks. So I'm definitely going to dive into Deathloop. I'm going to finish off Final Fantasy X, and then I'm going to fire up Diddy Kong Racing because it won this month's Patreon poll. I don't bought it. I just haven't put in my Nintendo 64 to play it yet. But I just wanted to get Final Fantasy X finished off first. And I'll 1000% most likely be doing a review episode about Deathloop on Expansion Pass in October. It'll be spoiler free like all my reviews. But I got to finish it first. And it seems dope, and I'm really excited to finally get some time to sit down and put more time into it. That's what I've been playing. Let's talk. Oh, yeah, and I've been playing Kirby's Dream Land. I bought it and beat it in about 45 minutes just to get ready for this episode. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. As you know, I like to give some of you a chance to share your thoughts on the game we're talking about before my guest and I ramble on for far too long. Luca wrote into us on Patreon and said, I never had a home console growing up, but I did have a Game Boy. And Kirby's Dream Land was one of maybe 5 games that I had for it. I memorized that entire game and could eventually get through it in less than 45 minutes. I even got really good at the harder extra game mode. I can see how this game was greatly overshadowed by the later games in the series, being very short, lacking a save system, and it didn't even have that copy ability Kirby's so synonymous with. But it was a great way for me to learn how to play games, and it boosted my confidence, knowing that there was at least one game out there I could beat. You know what? I never thought of it that way, Luca, and I don't mention it on the podcast this week, but I don't think I did. But that is a great point. As much as I was mad that I beat it so fast and I thought like I kind of got ripped off by Kirby's Dream Land, you're right. There wasn't a lot of games that I could beat as a kid, and it was nice to have a game that I could just kind of cakewalk through and make myself feel good when need be, because I was so busy playing the old games that would just feed me my fucking lunch all the time. Johnny CCDC wrote in and said, this was one of those games I got for the Game Boy that I absolutely loved. Short, sweet, but packed with meat on the bone, there it is, that gave it so much replay value for the time. The fact that you could fly whenever you wanted, that you could literally eat your enemies and then spit them back out at other baddies was so cool. It was only outdone by its sequel, which simply took an already great concept to bigger and better heights. Also, I loved the white Kirby and still prefer him to the pink one. If you don't know, yeah, Kirby was white in the original version. And dude, so many people, I have to assume that was due to the Game Boy's limitations and the fact that it couldn't make pink. But I can't believe how many people wrote in saying they preferred white Kirby. I just think of pink Kirby. I don't know. White Kirby, he kind of just looks like a bad guy. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. Jafar wrote in and said, my history with this game is actually very similar to yours, Adam. This was the first game I bought with my own money when I was about 8 years old. It was on sale for $10, and I beat it during the car ride home at night using the streetlights we passed along the way to see. Kirby's Dream Land is so ridiculously short that it left me in disbelief the first time I beat it, but I go back to it regularly because it's a lot of fun, and it feels good to sit down for 15 minutes and be able to 100% a game. And you know what? I will say, like, when I sat down and replayed it, I was like, fuck, this game is, I think I died once when I beat it. On the easy mode. I didn't play it on the hard mode yet. But I was like, it is just kind of it's ironic that we're talking about gaming comfort, comfort games tomorrow on Expansion Pass. And I'm like, man, Kirby's Dream Land is kind of comfort food. It's just easy. You can pick it up. The only other game I remember beating, like the first time I played it, was A Little Mermaid on the NES. And I really like that game too. So I don't know. And then Ryan Baystor wrote in and said, I absolutely love this game. One of my first Game Boy cartridges along with Tetris, Mario Land, and Alleyway. It's short as hell, but it's endlessly entertaining and has a lot of awesome moments. The whole Mount DDD level comes to mind. I always thought that traveling on the Star to transport was a nifty mechanic, and the Wispy Woods boss is iconic. I will agree with you on a couple of those points. Mount DDD, particularly the music when you fight King DDD, which you're going to hear near the end of this episode, is fucking outstanding. King DDD is excellent. And as much as I hate fucking stupid Blowy Tree, you're right. That is an iconic boss. This is a crappy boss, but iconic nevertheless. I'll give you that. So let's get into Kirby's Dream Land, everybody. I'm going to cue up that old school Game Boy pixelated music. There it is. And when I get sick of listening to it, my buddy Patrick and I are going to go back to 1992 and talk about Kirby's Dream Land, the debut of Kirby, which originally released on the Game Boy in North America on August 1st of 1992. Enjoy the podcast, everybody. Let's go. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Okay, so this is a photo finish for the podcast this week. I don't think we've ever recorded one this late. This show will be going live in about 3 hours. This is welcome to the world of comedy mixed with podcasting. But we're talking Kirby. We're talking Kirby's Dream Land, the debut of Big Fat Kirby. And joining me on the show this week, returning to the show, is my good buddy Patrick. How's it hanging, man?
Oh, pretty good, man.
I haven't talked to you in a while. How's lockdown, COVID, pandemic life? Are you staying sane?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just as thrilling as anybody's is, I imagine.
Just,
fuck. Playing a lot of Game Boy games.
Yeah, so dude, okay, so that's great. That's a fucking I knew you'd fucking go there. It's because you're smart. So I know that like you and I have you've been on the show several times. You and I have talked before,
yeah.
But like the Game Boy's kind of your jam, yeah?
Oh, dude, it's the best. It's the greatest. It's the greatest handheld console of all time.
So I'm just curious, like before we get into Kirby, like listen, you're not going to catch me shitting on the Game Boy. I grew up with the Game Boy. I got mad love for the Game Boy. I take a lot of shit for people that are like, you guys got to cover more Game Boy games. And I'm like, well, growing up, like I only had 2 or 3 good, like I had Tetris and I had Mario and I had this. I didn't have a lot of good Game Boy games, but I'm just curious, like why most people collect like NES or Super Nintendo or Genesis. Like why old puke green? And you have the new one, right? You have that fancy new Game Boy.
Well, it's still an like the guts of it are like a DMG Game Boy, but I've upgraded the screen. It's a new shell, but like the main components of it are an original Game Boy. It just has an LCD screen with a backlight to it, and I just reskinned the outside basically.
Okay, because I saw you post a picture the other day where you were like watching TV or something, but also playing this.
Sharp as hell,
and it looked fucking buddy. Dude, I was like, bro, that looks so. I was like, that's the first thing I'm going to ask him when I get him on the podcast is what the fuck? How does your Game Boy look like a goddamn fucking 4K TV? But that looks fucking mint, buddy.
It's so much fun playing it that way because you don't get the like that. I mean, part of the charm some people really like about the Game Boy is like the the ghosting that happens to the images as you're moving fast. But I like the new LCD screens that you can throw on them because they're just like nice and crisp and clear, and you can swap the color palettes on them and stuff. I like playing that like white and black one that you saw me post.
Yeah.
But you can go like the classic green and black, and there's red and purple and blue and stuff, depending on the model of screen that you get for it. But it makes it like way more playable. You can do day or night kind of thing anywhere. You don't have to like entirely depend on street lights if you're playing at night or directly in the sun.
Yeah, dude, I was floored looking at it. I was like, Jesus, buddy, that looks fucking crisp.
Yeah.
So
it's nice.
So then before we get into Kirby, I'll just ask, because you're a Game Boy, you're a Game Boy nerd. Have you got an ace? Like, have you got an ace in your Game Boy rotation? You got a favorite Game Boy game?
You know what? Like, there's so many good ones. I mean, there's a lot of junk too, but like those Mario games are so classic, especially like the Mario 2 is so good. Like, that's such a perfect game. I mean, you've covered that before. That's such a great game. The Wario Land games are great. And like Kirby, dude, like that's why we're talking Kirby, because like I think this is one of the great. It's just a perfect game for this system.
You know what? Yeah, I agree with that. And like it's fucking wild, dude, because like I haven't played this. So like I'll have told the story in the intro. I've told the story a million times. This is the first game I ever bought with my own money. I beat it the night I brought it home, and as a little kid who just spent literally my life savings on this game, I was a little crushed. And so for a long time, I've never hated this game, but for a long time, I was just kind of like, you fucking stay on your side of the road. Like, we're not friends anymore.
I know. That's why I'm thrilled to like be talking about this game with you, because I know you have this like traumatic childhood experience of like buying this game and it just like being over before you really get to enjoy it. But like part of the charm of it, I think, is exactly that. The Game Boy is it's not a like you look at through the lens of like today's standards. You want games that are, they've got story and there's a lot to it and a lot of value for the games. But in the Game Boy, it was literally designed as a pick up and play wherever you are type thing. And Kirby is a perfect game for that because it is so short. It's so easy. It's so great for that aspect. You can literally just turn it on. You can play for 5 minutes. You can play it for half an hour and beat it. And it's such a fun experience even to this day.
It is. And I'll be honest with you, man. Like I was floored when I sat down to play it, because I played it on my 3DS a couple of days ago. I bought it off the eShop. It's like $4. By the way, for any of you that are out there, I know a lot of people are going to be like, I just emulate them all on my phone or fuck or whatever. But if you are looking to actually buy Game Boy games, the 3DS like actually has a respectable virtual console of old Game Boy games, and they're pennies. They're like $3 or $4. Like, they're fucking great pricing. Awesome. And I went and bought this, and I sat down and played it for the first time in, God, probably since I was a little kid. And I beat it. I think I died once. Like, I beat it in 40 minutes. Whatever the fuck it was. But I gotta say, like, we'll review the actual game itself here. I was like, from the soundtrack, which I think is spectacular, to the way it looked, I was like, bro, this is a great looking Game Boy game. And it played crisp, and I was like, man, it's easy. And I think depending on how you want to look at it, that can either be a fault or a positive, depending on how you want to look at it. But other than that, I was like, this is a superb little video game. Like there is just no bugs, it's all polished.
It's perfectly designed. It's like you said, the music, the characters are interesting, the variety of characters in the worlds and levels, and it plays smooth. Like when we talked about the first Mario game for the Game Boy, and we talked about how weird that game plays. Like on top of looking interesting, the controls are a little strange. They don't really feel like a Mario game.
Yeah.
Kirby handles really tight. Like the whole game is very precise and is very easy to play. And what I love about the design of it is something they do. And as I've been kind of playing through it again and looking at stuff, something that's so brilliant about the game is they start you off on a level. They don't tell you anything. There's no, like, unless you read the manual if you had the physical copy, you read the manual, you wouldn't know what to do. But picking up now and looking at it for the first time, you play through a little bit of level, and then they introduce you to like a smaller version of the boss you're going to fight.
Yeah.
To introduce you to an easier version of the mechanic, because each boss is a different style of mechanic that you need to use to fight that boss. And halfway through the world, they introduce you to a kind of a lighter version of that boss to go, this is what you're going to be up against. It's going to basically be a double version of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a smart move in the game's design to implement something like that, where you get to the boss, you go, okay, I know what to do here, even though the boss may look different or be, especially in the first world, you fight the guy with the bomb, and it's like, well, this is basically what you have to do: suck up the bomb, shoot it at the boss.
Yeah.
And then when you fight the Wispy Woods boss, the tree, it's the same thing, but they fall from the sky. But you understand what to do.
That Wispy Woods thing is funny you bring him up too, because somebody and this is, I guess this is one of the advantages to recording the game part of the podcast so late, is that I've already done the intro for this week, so I know what other people have written in to say about the game, which usually I don't. And I think it was Ryan Bayshore, one of our patrons, wrote in and was like, the first boss has become, and sorry to all of you if it wasn't Ryan, someone's gonna send me a nasty email and be like, that was me, you son of a bitch. But they mentioned just how iconic that fucking tree is, and I was like, and it's so funny because I'm like, that tree makes fucking Glass Joe from Punch Out look like a beast. Like, that tree is the wimpiest fucking boss, but for some reason it is like, when you think like he's on the cover of the game with Kirby, like
that's right.
It's just, it literally is just a stupid wimpy looking tree that blows air at you, and then his apples fall, and you spit them at him
as you shoot apples at his face.
Yeah, just the crappiest boss, but it's but he works, and he's such a great first boss for this game, and you nailed it. Like, I was, maybe the thing I took away from it that impressed me the most, because it's been so long since I played it, is like, I'm a huge fan of Kirby's Adventure on the NES. I think that's one of the best games on the NES, but that game fucking chugs a lot because it pushes the NES to its limit. And I understand that Kirby's Dream Land is literally a fraction of the game that Kirby's Adventure is in basically all aspects. And it's running on smaller hardware too. But like, I was expecting to have a whole bunch of slowdown and lag and choppiness and stuff. And like, nope, this game runs fucking flawlessly. I was
there are a few moments where it does chug a bit, but you don't notice it.
It was nothing.
There's a lot of action, but it doesn't break the game or really make it. If anything, it gives you a little bit of breathing room to maneuver while you're getting through.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that speaks to, just if you want to talk about how great of an impact this game has. The game is designed and created for the Game Boy, and then they make an NES version. I don't know any other game that went that way.
Yeah.
Most of those Game Boy games were Nintendo ports or NES ports that they just dumbed down. This was a game they built for the system, and it plays perfect for the system and the hardware. And they're like, well, that game's so good, let's take that character and like the stuff that it sets up in this game go on to, I mean, you see elements from Kirby's Dream Land up into like the newest Smash Bros. Game.
Yeah. Oh no, Kirby, like, because like, for those of you that don't know, this is Kirby's this is his debut. This was like the first time you know what? And I'll tell you, the reason I bought this game with all that fucking Christmas money was because they marketed the fuck out of this game. And little Adam, just being the gullible little Nintendo fan, like card carrying fanboy that he still is, but that he was as a child, saw this new mascot, and it was like, he's this big fat guy and he can fly and he can eat enemies. And I was like, that sounds awesome. And I don't know why I expected it to be so hard, because in hindsight, because like, listen, I think that the reason a lot of people shit on Kirby these days is because they're like, well, these games are for babies. Like, these games are too easy. And they, listen, I haven't played a Kirby game in forever because they are too easy. But at the same time, like, you guys, Nintendo is a family company, and they're just like, hey, we need something that'll, appeal to the families and stuff like that. And one of the other people that wrote in brought up a great point where they were like, it was nice to have this game as a child because I had a game that like gave me a little bit of a confidence boost because I knew I could beat it. And I was like, that's a great fucking point. Like this is one of the first games I ever beat as a kid. And as frustrated as I was that it was so easy, there was part of me that was like, this was like a fun game. It was cool. Like even as a kid, I thought it was a well-designed, fun game and I can beat it. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I don't have to, I can beat this game. Like I can go to my mom and be like, look, like I beat the game. I couldn't beat Super Mario Brothers when I was a kid, but I could beat fucking Kirby's Dream Land.
I think that also speaks to, giving the designers some credit too, because this is a game that almost in a sense it grows with your ability to play it. Because yes, you have the base game, which is very it's very entry level friendly and it's very easy to complete. But then you can play the hard mode. You can unlock it either by the code at the end, or if you know it, you can just put it in for the extra mode.
Yeah,
and then it flips the whole game, and it's a much more difficult game. Like I tried to play it recently, and I'm like, oh my god, like I would have been so dead as a kid trying to play this.
Yeah, hard mode. Listen, I'm not gonna it's not fucking Dark Souls or something. Like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this is hard, but like hard mode will fuck you up. Like hard mode, you need a little bit of practice, which is great. Like that's a great thing. Like there
definitely feels like the adult version of the game. Like if you had your Game Boy from childhood to like being a teenager and you were getting more adept at playing games and being a lot more skilled, you could go back to this and play this extra mode where like I play it now and it's a struggle, man. Like it's tough.
Yeah, and it's funny because like part of me has always thought that's just that like, I mean, because Super Mario Brothers does that too. When you beat Super Mario Brothers, you can start over again, and all the Goombas are fucking Buzzy Beetles or whatever, and like it's harder. And part of me has always been like, what a fucking cop out way to extend the life of your game. Just just put more enemies in. But then when I feel like that about Super Mario Brothers. But I will say that I fired up the hard mode in this and started playing it, and I was like, oh, it's not like all they did was swap out the wimpiest enemies for stronger enemies. Like there's more enemies and more shit.
There's more, and then there are enemies that don't exist in the regular game. There are extra mode specific enemies that just they replace them with a more unpredictable pattern. Like even when you're fighting the Wispy Woods boss, like he's got a whole different pattern of attack too, where you're like struggling to dodge the now those wimpy puff clouds are like, oh shit, like the spikes are going to drop on me and he's going to hit me with his puffs of air, and it's you're battling for your life in that one.
Yeah, I was impressed that they actually put a little bit of like, I mean, this is gonna sound condescending, but like they tried, like they put a little bit of effort into that hard mode. And the thing about it, and you know what the thing about it to me is Patrick, is I was like, and this is gonna again, I'm a card carrying Nintendo fanboy, I openly admitted it, but like that's a Nintendo move. Like Nintendo saw this and was like, you know what, this could be a new cash cow for us. Like we already have Mario, Zelda's going well. Now we've got this little, and he did like, I would argue that Kirby, whether you like Kirby or not, he might not be on the Mario Zelda tier, but he's on the tier right below it. Like he gets a game every system.
He's
everyone
mascot
knows.
level. He's mascot level character.
Oh, he's a huge IP. And it all started with this one. And the thing is like you mentioned it off the top, dude, there's a lot of crap on the Game Boy. There's a lot of developers that took their big NES games and fucking just watered them down as much as they had to and stuck them on the Game Boy. There's a lot of crap on there. And you play something like this, to this day, bro, this game came out in 1992. It's 2021 right now, which, if my brain still works, is 29 years apart. Yeah. And I'm like, this game still, like, I wouldn't pay 50, like, if I paid $50 for this game today, I'd be fucking hot. I'd be like, what the fuck? Yeah. But if I had paid, I paid $5 for this game on my 3DS, and I'm like, I would have paid, like, if they just, imagine Kirby never existed, and then someone releases this game today for $10, I'd be like, dude, the game looks like the game holds up today, which you can say about very few Game Boy games that aren't RPGs. Like Pokemon, you can say that about, but RPGs are different because it doesn't really matter how the graphics age, it matters on how they play. Yeah. But like, I would argue that like, I know it's a little bit older than it, but like Kirby's Dream Land aged much better than Super Mario Land did. Like it's, and I like Super Mario Land, the first one.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like when you play Super Mario Land now through today's lens, you go like, this game looks and feels weird. But you play Kirby, you go like, this game feels right.
Yeah.
When you play it, everything is responsive. The character, like the flying mode, like the whole aspect of flying and you can fly forever if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you want to attack something, you've got to give up that ability. And like that design alone is just like, it's so cool because it gives you the power to just, as a kid, you can go, well, this is too hard. I'm just going to fly over all of this and not deal with any of this. And whereas even Mario, you're typically forced to fight everything in your path on the ground.
And even with the flying thing, like there's a lot of areas where you go into like caves or you're climbing up inside the tree.
There's spikes on the ceiling.
There's flying enemies. Like you're right. There are parts where you can
the cannons that shoot
fly
up
by.
at you.
But you can't just cheat over the whole game. And that's great that they found a way to put this flying mechanic in a game, but also not have it break the game. Like imagine playing Super Mario 3.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, like imagine Super Mario 3 with infinite P-Wings. Like it's broken as fuck, right? Whereas this game, it still works. One thing, bro, and I'm not going to lie to you, Patrick, until I replayed it for this podcast, I would have lost a bet if you had bet me on this. I totally forgot that in this game, you can't steal enemies' abilities. And this one they didn't introduce that till the second one. And you
or the
can't,
NES, I guess.
Yeah, and you can't criticize the game for that because it was just the first game of the series. It's not like they took it out. That was just what was in it. Yeah. But what's wild though was that there were enemies like the little cutter throwing ninjas and the fucking beam, the one-eyed beam guys and stuff. Yeah. Enemies that and later the bomb guy, like that you'll be able to steal abilities from.
Yeah,
but you didn't have in
like
this
the
game.
Sword throwing knight guy.
Yeah. And it was such a mind fuck because there's so like I played quite a bit of Kirby and there's so many enemies that it probably took me a level. Like I finally Googled the instruction manual, not because it was too hard, but I was like, am I doing something wrong? Yeah. Like
you would you'd eat them and then, or you would breathe them in and then you press down to keep their powers in the later game. So in this one, it flattens out and gets rid of the ability to spit them back out.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there are nerds out there. I'm sure you can read about it. I don't know why they decided to add that mechanic when they went to Kirby's Adventure, but obviously, like, thank fuck, because that adds so much depth to the game. I would
imagine just, exactly that. It's just not remaking the same game.
Yeah. But like I was like, man, what a mind fuck. But at the same, like I wasn't mad. I just was like, oh, I'm just so used to being able to do that. This is fucking weird.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time,
it's been in the game longer than it hasn't. At this point.
But it was so rad that they kept so many of those enemies, like that they're just regular. You know what I mean? Like they didn't reinvent the wheel when they made the second game. They were like, remember those enemies you fought the first one? Well, some of them now you can take their abilities, which I think is just the coolest fucking thing in the world. I thought that was awesome. And then also they like there were certain abilities you could pick up during the game.
The power ups.
Yeah, and I fucking like the spicy food is like I think that's. I remember being a little kid and I showed that to my dad, and my dad made a joke that like he was farting, like he couldn't hold it, like he was just like that all the spicy food was just wrecking his stomach, and I just thought it was like the funniest thing. So every time I got the spicy food, I would run and show my dad and be like, "Oh, like he's got gas, Dad. He's got the spicy food." And playing it today, or the other day, I was just like, as soon as I picked it up, I was like, "Oh, he's got the gas." Like it was, like clearly. I don't know if they had the idea that they were going to make another game and make you be allowed to eat enemies and steal their abilities. Like, I don't know if they already had that planned out or not, but like the blueprint is there with the spicy food, the mint leaf, the microphone, that kind of stuff.
The invincibility, candy, the lollipop.
Yeah. And frankly, like, I mean, Kirby's Adventure is, I don't even like to, I don't know if it's fair to this game to compare it because I'm not even trying to compare it, but like in Kirby's Adventure, the game is clearly designed around getting these abilities and using them. Whereas like, if you were able to steal the enemy's abilities in this game and use them, an already easy game would have been, fuck, you probably could have played it with your eyes closed if you could have stolen everyone's abilities in this fucking game as well.
Yeah. You'd be able to just blast through it even more.
Yeah, it would have broken.
I wonder how far after Kirby's Dream Land that the one for the NES came out, because I think it's like a year later. Isn't it like 1993?
Yeah, I'll look it up right now. It's not too far because I know that like Kirby's Adventure was right near the end of the NES. It was one of the last NES games.
Only Kirby game on the NES.
Yeah, it is, and.
Because then it was Dreamland 2 on the Game Boy, and then I think 3 comes out on the Super Nintendo, right?
I
think I'm pretty sure
Kirby Superstar came out on the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Which was, I guess, kind of like Kirby's. Okay, so yeah, Kirby's Dream Land in 1992, Kirby's Adventure in 1993, Kirby's Pinball Land, Kirby's Dream Course, Kirby's Avalanche, Dream Land 2.
Those are bullshit.
Yeah. Fucking, oh my, dude, there's a lot of Kirby games. Holy fuck.
Yeah, those spin-off games are ridiculous. I mean, they're like, we have a ball character. What can we do with balls that we can just make this character that?
Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you is, and I don't know if this was because of the Game Boy screen or not, but like, he's only white in this game, and then in all the other ones he's pink. And
I think that just comes down to design, right? So what I heard, I don't remember where I had heard this. I don't know if this is true or not, but I had heard that Kirby was just like a placeholder character until they created something else. As they created the game, they're like, well, we're gonna do this placeholder character, and then we're gonna replace him with something much more interesting. But as they got along, they really started to like the design of the character, and then they kept it. And so I don't know how far into the development of the game that happens, but I think that's kind of interesting. So it's like, they had this blank white circular character. They're like, we'll make him something else after. And then they're like, well, we like the character. Let's just keep him as this character. And then, they just, cause in the American version, it's white, but I think if you look at the Japanese version of the game, he's pink on the cover of that one.
Okay. It's funny because like, I believe that he was a placeholder character. Cause like, and again, I have no beef with Kirby, but like,
there's nothing to him.
He is kind of a crappy character.
He's a face on a ball.
Yeah. He really is kind of a crappy. They're just like, it looks like I'm not joking. Like I could draw Kirby. I can't draw anything, but I could draw Kirby. Like there's no depth. He's just a circle with 2 feet that eats everything. Like he's a pretty crappy character. But it's crazy, dude.
Like
that
penguin wings for arms.
Yeah. So many people wrote in and they were just like, bro, I much preferred the white design of Kirby to pink. And I
agree with that.
Really? I'm floored by
I don't know what it is. Yeah. Now I don't care about Kirby as a character design wise, but that box art for Kirby's Dream Land, it sticks with me, man. Just like that's what I think the character looks like.
Well, the box art is great. I'll give that up. But I look at him and I literally have it on my screen right now, and it's great looking box art. But I'm looking at him and I'm like, dude, like when he's white, he literally just looks like a Boo from Mario that like went rogue and was like, no, I'm gonna leave. I don't want to work for Bowser anymore. I'm just gonna go eat animals in the forest. Which is another thing. I got to be honest with you. I think it's a little fucked up that we're just going through the forest eating all these fucking animals. Like they're just there.
So no, the animals, those aren't animals of the forest. Those are the minions of King Dedede that have come to Dreamland and they've stolen all of the stars and the food from Dreamland. And now you're going and you're fucking their shit up.
I still feel bad because Dedede made them do this. I don't know. They don't like that's one thing is like I know that Kirby's supposed to be cute, but the enemies don't look like a Goomba. Bro, you look at a Goomba from Mario and you're like, yeah, that's fucking gross. It's a walking
other than the mushroom character, all of those characters look evil. Like there's something bad to them.
Yeah, I guess.
So I don't feel like this would be like you feel bad for like killing the robotic monkey in Sonic the Hedgehog. Be like, oh, he's all Robotnik's like enemies are all like some sort of insect. You're like, I feel bad for killing them. I'm like, well, those are evil characters.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Fuck. All right. Fair. Okay. Point conceded. Fair enough. Okay. So we've established that this game fucking looks awesome. It plays surprisingly well. Like the controls are tight, responsive. It doesn't feel slow. It fucking feels good. I would be remiss if I didn't sit here and jerk off about the soundtrack for a minute. Cause I gotta tell you, dude,
iconic.
I gotta ask you, like you're a Game Boy junkie. Is this the best soundtrack on the Game Boy? It might be.
Like honestly, dude, like when I hear those songs, like I know every bit of them. Like that's just one of those things. Like it's just you hear that soundtrack and it's time and place again. Like we've talked about this before on the podcast. Like that game is like driving across Canada late nights, like playing under the streetlights as they're passing by, and like just playing that game with that soundtrack going. Like it's very time and place, and I love that so much about it. And it's very reflective of the the environment, because you could argue it's a very childish appearing and seeming game, and it's got this very upbeat, happy soundtrack, but it's done so well.
It is. And you know what I think is awesome is that I do think that a lot of the music from this game is childish and upbeat and happy and stuff like that. But then the music, and I'll tell you guys, because I literally was on YouTube stealing a couple of tracks for this fucking podcast, and you're going to hear it in about 20 minutes when Patrick and I wrap this up. I can't be convinced that the King Dedede theme, like that, the music that plays like we were fighting King, like that is like, I'm like that stacks up against Mega Man. And for all of you that know how much I love Mega Man,
that's a great comparison. Like that's like the level of quality of music that I think that game.
And I thought it was so awesome that like I just spent 4.5 levels, playing a game, and it's got this like, la 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 music, and then you fucking you literally get into a boxing ring with King DDD, and then the music just goes like, no more fucking around. This guy means business. And it gets so intense, and it's not even that intense. It's really not that hard to fight. But I love that music so much. Like I was floored at how good the fucking music, like and it's so funny how, I mean, you're big into music, so I know you're going to understand what I'm trying to say far better than I'm going to be able to say it, but like music just sticks with you. You know, when you hear a song you heard that you listened to as a kid, and it's like a smell, like it's burnt into your brain.
Yeah.
And when I'm sitting here playing Kirby's Dream Land and that fucking King DDD music hit, and I was just like, oh yeah, like that's the stuff. Oh, just polish. Patrick,
I love all, like, the boss design in the game is really enjoyable.
You know what? I like all the, so if you've not played it, so there's only 5 levels. I would even argue it's not 4.5, it's 5 levels.
There's 4 levels. Then there's King DDD's level, which is replaying a lighter version of all 4 of those levels.
Yeah,
the boss fights again.
And then refighting the bosses again. Yeah. So the first boss, like, you're in the woods and it's just that fucking tree that is so, I don't know how that fucking tree became so goddamn iconic, because he really is worse than Glass Joe, who's also
think
iconic.
It's the combination of being on the box art. So you see it. That's what's going to sell you as a kid, you know, the art on the cover, and then you play it and you go, well, that's the boss. Like, it almost becomes iconic in the sense that Kirby and this tree, that's the level. And in, you know, like, almost in a way that bring it back to the Sonic comparison for some reason. Like, the first level of Sonic is designed as a training level. Greens kind of feels the same way, where it's that first level is like, here's an introduction to the mechanics, what you can do. Here's a mini boss to show you what you're going to be fighting, and now there's this tree that you recognize from the cover of the box. And if that's all you play as a kid, especially a game designed to be picked up and played very short amount of times, you know, you may just replay that first level over and over. So that's what sticks in your head a lot.
It's fascinating that they didn't put DDD on the cover. That it's that fucking wispy woods tree. That's interesting. Like, because DDD, it's not like King DDD's fucking scary looking. Like, he's just a fat bird and
penguin looking thing. Yeah.
But for some reason they put that tree on there. And you know what's funny, dude? I'm literally looking at a picture of that tree right now, because like that tree. It almost hurts me to admit it because he's so wussy, but like, he is iconic. But I will say, like, he never looks like, he always looks like he's just like, like he doesn't, like, he wants to be left alone. Like, he doesn't look mean at all. His eyes never even.
He has no real attacks. He's like, look, I've got no arms, no legs. All I can do is just blow air at you. Be like, leave me alone.
Yeah,
like,
that's all he's trying to do.
Push you away with air. These apples are falling from my tree, and you're spitting them in my face.
Yeah, it's almost like he's offering up the apples as like a peace offering. He's like, here, you can have some of my apples. Just don't. I can't move. I'm stuck here. Just fucking leave me alone.
Leave me alone.
And Kirby's like, no.
Maybe Kirby is a monster in that sense, because I mean, the tree wouldn't be put there by King DDD. That would have been a tree that lived in green. So you fight all these enemies and you're like, hey, giant tree, like, fuck you.
They don't even like take his eyes and make them look angry. Like, all they would have had to do is like make his eyes look sinister, but like, the whole time he just looks like someone just went into the wrong hole. Like, he just has this look on his face like, oh no. Poor tree. What are the other bosses? What's this?
Lolo and La 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 are the second level bosses. Those are the ones that shoot the crates at you. You have to suck up the crates and hit them with them.
So that's my favorite boss in the game outside of DDD. Is Lolo.
You like that one?
Yeah, I do. Because like, if you've not played it, it's literally, I'm trying to look up right now. Is it Lolo from Adventures of Lolo? It looks like it's exact character.
It does look like that. I never really thought about that, but maybe
I'm just looking to see if it is the same. But like,
I never made that connection.
It literally, like, if you've never seen it, literally is Lolo. Like, I don't know if it is Lolo, but it is exact copy.
I wonder if it's
Lolo.
the same game designers, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, it says Lolo and La 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 originated from Lolo and La La, characters from an earlier HAL game. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So you fight the two of them, and there's a pair of them. I assume like a brother and sister or something. And there's like, that's my favorite boss, because it's these 4 sets of doors on different levels, and they run across the room with these like big ice cube jar things, and all you have to do is suck it up and spit it at them.
But you got to do it from behind them, so you kind of got to wait till they pass by, drop down.
Yeah, you go underneath them, come up behind, and suck it up. But I love that I love enemies where they do the whack-a-mole thing, where they run into like a door, and then they come out of some random door, and they're coming the other way. It just, to me, it breaks up the for lack of a bit, like, Because the thing is like when you fight the Cloud, or who's the other boss? There's DDD the Cloud.
Yeah, so there's I don't know how to. It's like Kabula. That's the blimp, and then Krakow is the spike cloud.
Oh, right,
thing.
the blimp.
And
Okay.
I think those are the two best bosses.
See, I thought the Cloud thing was like it was so like there's this big lightning cloud with an eyeball in it that shoots like the laser beams like the enemies in Kirby
It's
do.
a cloud with spikes on it.
Yeah, with Cloud. You're right. It does have spikes on it, and it's cool looking. But like, it's like the tree in the sense of like you're just gonna suck up the enemies or the apples or whatever that it's spitting out, throw them at them, and dodge. It's just obviously a much harder version of the tree.
See, I think he's a much more terrifying. Like that character. See, that to me is the most iconic character from the game. Is that boss? That's the one that I think about when I think about Kirby.
Oh, really?
Because that character terrified me as a kid because he's. I have a problem with anything that swoops down in games to try and kill you. So like the sun in Super Mario Brothers 3, I was always terrified of because it's like there's this thing up there and it comes down to where you are. And that's one of the attacks that Krakow has is that he drops down an enemy that you have to suck up and shoot at him. But what he'll do is this move where he drops one down and then immediately swoops at you.
Yeah.
So you have to time it where you suck him up and jump, or you have to forego the enemy and just jump over him. And that always terrified me because the anxiety of not knowing if it was going to be one of the ones where he spits them out and swoops at you. And then on top of that also has like the little projectile beam that he shoots out of his eyeball as well. It's just like something about a giant eyeball is frightening.
He's easily like
an eyeball that's in a cloud with spikes. He's just a terrifying looking thing.
Of the four, like not counting DDD, of the four bosses, I think he's easily the toughest. Like, not that he's, again, it's not fucking Dark Souls.
He's the fourth level, so he's arguably the harder of the bosses.
He's got some bite. I like him. I love Lolo and Lala.
I think the blimp is the funnest though.
Yeah, the blimp, dude.
Because the
awesome.
blimp adds it kind of what I think you think in Lolo and La is that it adds it breaks up the mechanics. You're completely in a different style of gameplay.
Yeah, and
that's what I like about the blimp is because you play the level, then you get the mint leaf, and now you're in a like that side-scrolling, like what they do in Cuphead, or like in the first Mario Game Boy game where they've got the airplane and you're doing the side-scrolling shooting. I think that's so fun. It completely changes the mechanic of the game for a small amount of time.
It's a shmup. It becomes a shoot 'em up all of a sudden.
Exactly.
And you're fucking Kirby. You eat this mint leaf, and then you literally are nonstop flying. You just hold shoot. And then all you're doing is dodging the cannonballs it's shooting at you while you shoot it with mint clouds.
And then he does like does like a rush and tries to hit you on the screen. And
I shouldn't say that I love this all the time because some enemies in some games do it right and some games and enemies do it wrong. But like I do like it when games flip the script on the enemies a little bit. Like for example, Mario Brothers 3, you fight the 7 Koopa kids, and all 7 you just have to jump on them. It's just a matter of how you want to jump on them. Whereas in Super Mario World, they changed the formula a little bit.
Yeah, or like Battletoads, another game we've talked about, is like you get this different, like this nice break in the game, the core gameplay for another like side mechanic that also is done very well.
Yeah, I love that. I fucking love that boss fight.
Yeah.
So
and so to have that in such a small game is like that's what I think is so great about these bosses is each one of these bosses plays in a different style with a different mechanic.
Yeah.
And you'd be totally lost as to how to play them, except midway through the world, they give you a light version of that boss to go, here's what you're going to be going up against. Here's an easier version, 3 lives, learn how to do the mechanic. And then when you come to it, you're going to fight a character that's 6 lives and a little bit more fierce than this.
Yeah. I agree.
It's such a smart design. Like I think what makes it so brilliant is like its simplicity is almost what makes it like so beautiful.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's no, it's hard to say this because it's a Kirby game, but there's not a lot of fluff. Like there's not a lot of wasted space or anything. Like they know they had limited hardware and stuff. And like at this point, they'd been making Game Boy games for a few years. Like this wasn't their first dance with that hardware.
Yeah, this is quite a bit into the game.
They knew what they were doing. But like where it really stood out to me, the variety of the bosses was when you get to DDD's castle and you have to go into each of the 4. And I love that they make it almost like Mega Man where you could pick your poison and go to the 4 levels any way you want.
I do like that. Yep.
And I love it when I love when games do that. And then you just run through like these little half-assed versions of your levels.
So I think that's the weirdest part of the game. Like if we were to talk about anything that the game does like strange or not like perfectly is those weird, like they take the worlds that you just finished beating and they distill it down to 4 on-screen elements. They're like, here are the 4 enemies. Here's 2 or 3 things from the background of that level. you're going to go through a 30-second version of it, and at the end, the door is blocked, but you're just going to pick up a weird dancing Kirby, and the door is going to, all the enemies are going to disappear. Like there's almost no reason to have them.
No.
And they're so strange, and it's like such a weird out of context thing for the game to do.
And I mean, maybe it explains it in the instruction manual, and I just don't have the manual here or whatever, but like, yeah, why do you fucking have to pick up yourself? And it's always these weird little breakdancing Kirby's. And I thought that too. I got there and I just, cause like they put that fucking, a lot of them, they put that spiky, evil looking black cannonball in front of the door that you can't kill. And then you just see yourself dancing and then all you do is touch it and then it kills everything. And I'm like, well, where the fuck have you been the whole game? If you just kill everybody? And it was such an odd fucking decision. I don't know why they did that, but it's, I mean,
it's strange. It's just like we need something other than just going straight to the boss fight. So here's a small thing to remind you of what you just played through.
And I do like that you can choose your own order in each of the 4 levels, but I will say that like I personally I would have preferred if all you were going to do with choosing each of the 4 levels was give me 4 tiny little fun size versions of these levels, I would have preferred just a level, like a King DDD's castle level. Personally,
I think I would have preferred just a gauntlet of one after the other enemies. Like you fight the tree, fight the blimp, fight low.
Yeah, just make you fight the 4 bosses. You know, and it was fun. I had no problem fighting, and that's where I was going to say is like, to their credit, considering like the limited hardware they had, and like let's be honest, so there's not a lot you can like. Kirby can eat stuff and spit it out, and he can blow a puff of air. Like, there's not a ton you can do with him, especially back in the day when you couldn't steal enemies' abilities. And they did find a way to basically give you 4 different boss fights. And when you play the 4 of them in successation like that, you're right. Like, it's not boring because you're like, well, each of these fights is at least a little bit of
it's a different mechanic. Yeah. You're not just sucking up an enemy and shooting it at them. I mean, 2 of them you are. 1 of them you're doing like I guess all of them, 3 of them you're picking up an enemy and shooting it, but one of them, the way you're dodging stuff is different. And
it just changes it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And then after you beat the 4 of them, then you get to fight King DDD. And I'm just going to get this out on the table right now. And listen, based on the amount of people that enjoy playing as King DDD in Smash Brothers, I think a lot of people would agree with this. King DDD might not be Bowser, but King DDD is a fucking hell of a villain, Patrick.
Yeah.
I love his design. I love his attacks. I love his music. I like that you fight him in a boxing ring, which is the cool. You did that in the NES version too.
It almost seems like a level of just like what an insane opinion he has of himself, that in his castle he has like this boxing ring that he's going to fight you, and he's like, I'm the greatest champion. He's almost wearing he's got like a boxer's type robe type thing that he wears as part of his apparel. Like, he's the king and he knows it. And
I love it. It's
so funny.
And then when like the little
floating castle,
when his little life meter fills up at the bottom of the screen, and it just fucking and you're like, oh Jesus. And then it turns out that he's not. He's tougher than any of the other enemies in the game. He's still not really that tough.
No, he's not that. Once you know but I mean, he does, like, it is programmed in a way that it can put you into some corners where you can't help but take damage. I mean, you can play it very easily through, but there are moments where you're like, oh, he gets you caught on the corner of the screen or whatever it is. I was always terrified of his the move where he runs over to you and he tries to inhale you.
Yes.
Just the way that his mouth becomes like his entire body length. That image always frightened me as a kid too.
I like that he has all of your abilities. Like he can swallow you. He jumps up in the air, and then he kind of does like the little slam thing. So like you can't just fly above him because he'll do his high jump. That's where he gets me.
He'll jump and hit you with the hammer.
That's where he fucks me. Is he gets me against the side of the stage, and then I go to fly over him, and then he does his little hunch jump, and he fucking gets me that way. But I like that he basically has all the same abilities you do. What I love, my favorite animation that DDD has is that sometimes he runs at you, and then he swings the big mallet. And then he creates the stars, and that's how you can suck him up and spit him at him. Sometimes he like runs and it's like he trips. I don't know.
He trips and falls. Yeah. It's almost like it's trying to do a shoulder rush or something.
Yeah.
But it's animated in a way that it looks like he just trips and falls on his face.
To this moment, to this moment, I don't know if he's trying to jump on you or if he just falls. I've always thought it's funnier to think that he just loses his balance and falls. But like the only frustrating
because it doesn't produce anything that you can use against him.
Yes.
So it's almost like he's not making an attack.
It's almost
he's just running and failing because he's a weirdly proportioned penguin looking thing.
He's incredibly top heavy. It's kind of frustrating because when he does that run, it doesn't create. I wish he just created a star, because I get that he doesn't hurt you, but you're like, oh, okay, fuck. Like it's funny the first couple of times that he runs and just falls, but it's like, okay, swing your hammer so that I can get a star to fucking spit back at you. Like, let's keep the fucking ball moving here. You know what I mean?
I like it because then there's two moves that don't produce star, and you almost have to kind of guess, is he going to do like the fall shoulder charge, or is he going to try and inhale you in that moment? So you're almost forced to just avoid it altogether. It's just jump to the other side of the screen.
Yeah, you gotta play a little bit of defense and then just wait your spots. But like, so then you end up killing him, and then it makes that iconic, like that fucking, I don't know what it is, but that fucking scream noise that it makes for him. As soon as I heard that, I was like, that's just burned into my brain. It's this fucking music.
That's the same from the microphone yell, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it? When you get the microphone,
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all you do, and then Kirby just like all the Kirbys carry the fucking castle back, and then that's or whatever the fuck it is. And it's such an easy, charming little game, but like DDD's a great villain. It handles great. It looks great. The music's awesome. And I'm like, when I finished it, I put it down, and I this is gonna sound so stupid, but I was like, I forgive you for stealing my Christmas money as a child, Kirby's Dream.
Honestly, that like the whole motivation for wanting to do this game with you is that I knew how you felt about it, but I was like, I think my love of it, we can talk enough that you're going to come around to either really loving it or you're going to double down and just battle me on it, which I was prepared for either one.
I mean, so
I'm happy that it just warms your heart.
I still think that like Kirby still owes me $40. Like I'm still mad, but I was just like, you know what? This is a fucking God. What a
not
what
only
a good
does he owe you
fucking
$40, but he also owes you $3 extra for making you repurchase the game.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, because you know what? Actually, I'll take the $3 off the $40 tab because that's what this game was worth. Like and I don't mean to shit on this game because this game is great, but like the thing about it, if I guess if you're listening to this and you've never played it, I guess if you're a collector and you want to have it in your collection, then pay whatever it is it's worth. I have no idea what this game is
I don't think it's worth a whole lot, and that's what's great is because it was such a popular game. I don't think it's hard to find. Like you typically when you look for Game Boy games at retro game stores, there's always a copy of it.
Right.
And I don't think it sells for very much.
Good, because like, and this is not a dig, but there's just, I know that you guys, I know it's gonna get a pop. Like there's not a ton of meat on the bone here. Like there's some. It's a fun game, but I'm like, you know what? You're not going to get 40 hours out of this game, you know?
No, for sure. But between like the regular game, getting familiar with it, and then going back and playing that extra one, I think there's enough like that it justifies having this game in your collection.
Absolutely.
If you're into Game Boy games, like this is definitely for me a game that you need to have for that console, because when you boil it down to, the Game Boy is a pick up and play for a short amount of time type console.
Yeah.
Like part of what I don't like about modern handheld consoles, like I love my Switch, but I don't find myself playing it in handheld mode because I don't have the time to take a Switch with me and get into a deep game like that.
Right.
Whereas the Game Boy, I can take that to somewhere, a waiting room, whatever it is. I can turn it on. I can play 5-10 minutes of Kirby, enjoy it, and then just turn it off without worrying about getting back to that spot.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the perfect, like it's just so good because it distills down to this perfect element of being like, this is what the system's for. This is what games should have been designed for. And it's pick up and play, but it doesn't mean it has to be like bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's wild that like, if they had, imagine this exact game, but they launch it on the NES. Forget Kirby's Adventure. Imagine this exact game launches on the NES, but like with color, obviously. I don't think Kirby survives because I think people are like, well, it was fun, but it was like,
there's not enough for a sit-down version. Exactly. There's not enough for a sit-down version.
I agree. Whereas like they were like, yo, this game works so good on the Game Boy. I almost feel like you mentioned it. I never thought of it, Patrick, but you brought up a great point that you're like, most Game Boy games are NES ports that are put on the Game Boy.
Right.
Whereas this, they created this game for the Game Boy, and I have to imagine then they were like, yo, what could we do with this if we had like full power? Like if we had the NES.
Yeah.
And like, because I'll defend it to the death. Like I ranked my top 20 NES games a while back. Kirby's Adventure is in my top 20. That's a great fucking video game. But playing this, I was like, this is like an appetizer version of that. That's surprisingly good. It's
not a watered down version of an NES game. It's a game that was thoughtfully designed for the portability of, we're specifically going to make a simplistic game, easy to pick up, easy to play on a console that's designed for that. Nobody's main console was the Game Boy. You know, like the Game Boy was the thing you carried to and from school, and those were the times you played it. And then you probably had a home console that you played, you know, games that had much more to them where you could sit down and play. And to that aspect, it's so perfectly designed that, they take that and go, what if we could do a full release of a game like this with much more memory and color palettes and everything? And those two things, I think, just snowball into creating this iconic character that becomes, you know, mascot worthy for the franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. Just fucking outstanding. You're right. We're friends now. Like, me and Kirby have shaken hands and we're like, all right, man, it's fucking over. That was fine. That was fun. Like, $4. Like, I'll probably play it. I'll play it again. I had so much fun just sitting here playing. I was like, this was I think I had wrestling on while I was playing through it. And I was just like, man, what a nice little, this was just like a nice little snack. It was a nice little bite-sized gaming snack.
That, like, you talked about that picture I posted, like, I threw on Futurama, watched that in the background while I played Kirby, and, you know, after 30 minutes or so, I was done, and I was just like, what an enjoyable experience this is.
There's a lot of rumors floating around right now, everybody, that Game Boy and Game Boy Color games are going to be coming to the Switch right away for Nintendo Online.
That'd be so awesome.
And, yeah, it would be, but because it'd be awesome, I'm not sold Nintendo will do it, because Nintendo doesn't fucking do awesome things. Although I really do believe this one is going to happen. And I'm telling you all, if it does happen, like, we were trying to figure out what Game Boy games could come to the Switch, because I'm like, I think Pokemon is maybe. And so I'm like, if Pokemon doesn't come over, then you've got the Super Mario Lands, you got Link's Awakening, of course, you have Tetris, of course, and then I said the Kirby games. And I was like, I'm telling you, like, for all of you listening to this, if you've never played it, I hope that it shows up on the Switch. If it doesn't, if you've got a DS laying around, pay the $4 Canadian. So that's what, like 8 cents in the US to fucking get your hands on this game.
I think it's just free in the US.
Yeah, they'll give you 50 cents.
Kirby.
Yeah, they'll send you 50 cents if you buy this game. It's really good. Patrick, if we're gonna score this thing, how the fuck are we gonna? You know what? There's fucking. I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm looking up how many Kirby games. Are you gonna include
the spin-off games?
I'm just going with whatever this.
Games,
according to Google, there's 30.
Like 25. Yeah. Oh my God! Wow.
It says over 30. So we're gonna go with just 30. All right. So on a scale of 1 to 30, what would you rank Kirby's Dream Land?
I would say, like, it's a 25.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Fuck, that's what I was gonna do.
That's like bad radio. 8 out of 10. You know, like
yeah. I'll go. Okay, so I'm gonna go.
It's such a good game.
I'm going to go 24 just to be different because it's bad radio if we're both the same. But yeah, it's like, and you know what's wild, you guys, is that sometimes when we review an old game like this, we're like, well, back then it would have been a 28, but today it's a 20. This might be the first game ever that I'm like, I'll give it a higher fucking score now than I would have given it as a kid.
I think if we had done this game in the heat of when we were talking about like Super Mario Land, you would have given it a 0 from the conversation we had previously.
It would not have gotten a kind review. I assure you of that. But now I'm like, you know what? I played it. It was good. It's great. And I really got to say, guys, like, I play a lot of retro video games for this podcast, and it can be difficult sometimes because I play a game. I just played Tomb Raider on the PlayStation, the original Tomb Raider, and I liked it. And there's an episode coming about it right away. But I was like, the controls in this game have aged like a fucking banana. Like, they have not aged well at all. Yeah. Whereas, like, I didn't run into that issue with this. I played it, and I knew that I'd played it as a kid, so I had the nostalgia for it. But if I had never played this game in my life, I could have sat down and played it and been like, that was a nice little fun game. Like, it has aged really fucking well. So
yeah, it plays really tight.
Now let's just hope that someday we get another good Kirby game. I'm not sold that'll ever happen again, but we can hope.
I don't know if it. You know what? Like, the formula, I think, has been exhausted. I don't even know what I've seen what they've been doing with Kirby, and I don't really care for it anymore.
Yeah.
But, like, that doesn't take away from how good these older games were. You know, they had a formula, and it almost only works in this older style, I think.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, like, we all break Kirby's balls, and we're like, oh, Kirby games suck. Kirby games are for babies. But they are. You're literally, that would be like watching Sesame Street and being like, the plot in the show fucking sucks. Like, it's a show, it's a game for children. So, and Homer beat their brains out, you know?
But
I have to drop my Simpsons lines in there when I can. I have to.
Yeah.
But, man, good stuff. Before we move on, and I let you, I have no idea what you're about to say, but I have a good idea. But before I just give you the floor and let you speak to the dozens and dozens of hot dogs out there, have you got any closing thoughts on Kirby's Dream Land? Is there anything we missed? Is there anything I'm forgetting?
I don't think so. Something I think I'd really enjoy kind of bringing up. We were talking about like the sounds and kind of the nostalgic sounds. You're talking about King Dedede. One that sticks out for me is the sound of when you collect the star and you shoot up into the sky. It's such a unique, like, that's one that, like, you hear that, you're like, oh, nice. Like the sound of success at the end of the level kind of thing. It's just like, it's such a nice
that like chime sound.
Yeah, that little chimey. Yeah, and then you shoot up into the sky and go into you plug the whale's blowhole with it.
Yeah, dude, that's so charming too. That you like your star crashes in the whale's blowhole, and then the whale just shoots you up into the air.
Man, something we didn't even talk about is like those little animations at the start of each world. So when they introduce to you Green Greens and Castle Lololo and Float Island.
Yeah.
I love the one at the start of Float Island where it's Kirby fishing off the island. He catches a fish and throws it from the rod like right into his mouth, but then he gets hooked on the rod and he starts pulling at his cheek.
Yeah.
That little animation is just like, it's so adorable.
Yeah, it is. That's good stuff. It's also fucking, if you've never hooked yourself with a fish hook, it's also fucking horrifying. It's not as adorable. But for some reason with Kirby, it's like, no, he doesn't bleed. It's fine. He's just he's very
stretchy.
Yeah, he's an old condom. He's fine. Yeah. I don't know what he's made.
Probably the worst thing I've heard to describe Kirby.
That level got cut from the game.
Everything wholesome we just talked about is completely
ruined in 3 seconds. Yeah, what he swallows in the last level, that doesn't. Never mind. Leave it to Adam to ruin everything. Patrick, you're a busy guy. Fucking, the floor is yours. Tell people what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so I just I produce music under the name Burger Finger. You can check me out on Instagram. I'm also one half of a live hip hop duo. We're called Discount Lion Safari.
Shout out to anyone that gets that reference. Sorry, had to get it in there.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna mention it, especially since we dropped the earlier reference to it. And we just we're live. I do like live finger drumming on an MPC, and then I got a homie Fox that raps, and we're just two nerds that don't look like we should be in a rap group that rap about video games and book references, and it's a lot of fun. So you can find me at Burger Finger, and our Instagram for the band is discount.lion.safari. There's some kid who has just Discount Lion Safari and he's doing nothing with it, and I keep reaching out to him and he does not want to respond to me.
That's the worst.
I fucking doing a bunch of music.
That fucking, a whole bunch of people have the Adam Blank handles everywhere.
Yeah, every time I hear you talk about like your stuff is like it has to be at member the game and not remember the game because somebody else has it. I'm like, what a piss off that is.
Shit or get off the pot. All of you. If you've got someone's fucking handle, use it or give it back. Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Patrick's info is in the description of this podcast as well. So if you guys want to check out what he's up to these days, and I know I kind of yelled a whole bunch and maybe you didn't have a pen on you, just look at the description of this podcast. You'll see his handles there. Patrick, this episode is literally going live in 2 hours and 16 minutes. So I got to get editing. Don't forget to send me those things so that I can put them in the description.
For sure. Absolutely.
Brother,
thanks for having me. Yeah.
Fuck, man. It was great catching up with you. We'll do another one of these, hopefully in less time than fucking it's been between the last one and this one.
Yeah, I'd love to. Any Game Boy games, like if anybody has suggestions for Game Boy games that they want to hear, like chances are I've played it and I love it and we could talk about it. So
I love it.
Get people to throw out Game Boy game suggestions. We can do some more episodes on Game Boy.
I'm gonna put you on the spot on the podcast. Have you played Mega Man 5?
On the Game Boy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best one.
It is. I owned that game as a kid, and I have no idea whatever happened to that cartridge. And that cartridge is worth like a fucking house now. Not that much, but it's not cheap. And I'm so mad at my mom and dad for fucking giving it away or losing it or whatever the fuck it is they did with it. But yeah, okay. I'll talk to you. Well, I'm gonna hit end so I can get this thing editing. But we'll do an episode about Mega Man 5 because we got to talk about Mega Man 5. Thank you, brother. Good talking to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, man.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Patrick, thank you so much for giving me a call and talking Kirby's Dream Land, and for kicking me in the ass and getting me to replay Kirby's Dream Land. Because as angry as I was back then, I was like, this is a fun little game. It's a fun little game. Great quality. That was good times. And to every single one of you right now that are listening to the show, whether this is your first episode or your 166th episode, is there people out there that have listened to every one of these? Has to be a couple of you, you monsters. Thank you so much for listening. We are just climbing the charts. Things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger around here. Remember, the Game Industries has moved out of the garbage can behind my condo into the dumpster down the road from my condo because we're just growing so big. So I can't thank you all enough for the support. If you like this podcast and you want more of these, please consider supporting us on Patreon. I'm giving you a mountain of value, $2 a month, not a week, $2 per month. Gets you 2 additional podcasts on Thursday and Friday every week. Plus, there's well over 100 bonus podcasts just sitting there in the archives waiting for you to just download on your phone or whatever and listen to at your will for $2. Plus, you can vote for the games we cover. You can write in and play one, remake one, erase one, and blow in the cartridge and do all of those things. You can DM with me. I'll give you a shout out. It's really maybe the best value in the history of humanity. Quite possibly it is. So patreon.com/rememberthegame if you're interested in supporting us, or you can check out our merchandise at rememberthegamepodcast.com. That's also where you'll find my P.O. box. If you want to send me a letter, a postcard, something little, I'll write you back and we'll be friends. And you can find me on the old the old Twitch box. If you go to twitch.tv and look for Member the Game, not Remember the Game, Member the Game. I don't really have a set schedule. I also don't take money on there. I'm just looking to hang out with the community. I get on whenever I can. So hit me with a follow. It's free. Tell you when I'm on there, you can come by, be friends, we'll be friends. That's how everybody becomes friends. Have we got anything else to plug? I don't think so. I think that's it. I'll be back tomorrow for all of you Patreon supporters with Expansion Pass, where we'll be talking about our gaming comfort foods. I'll be back on Friday with Game Patch, and I'll be back next week with a whole nother juicy slab of podcasts, right off the meat on the bone. I can't think of a way to tie it into ribs, but that's what I was shooting for. I'm hungry. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you all again soon. Goodbye. Cheers. Remember the Game is brought to you by our Patreons. I could not produce all the content I turn out every week without all of your support. So I would like to take a moment to thank everyone that has supported us at patreon.com/rememberthegame. And holy fuck, this list is getting long. Here we go. Get comfortable, everybody. Here we go. A huge thank you to Dave, Makeshift Mallow Money, Todd, Joe Buck, Ben Drinkin, Sharonic, Andre, Stupid Monkey, Freezer Burnt, Tyler, Michael Mathis, Fake McHugh, Josh from Press Start to Join, Jeffrey Mathis, Shaylee, Keegs and his stupid arrow handle, Jin and Chris, James Clark, Sean Razine, Dave McGee, DNA Gaming, Joe Gillespie, Nathan Warzica, Ashley Cronenbitter, Ben Booyah, Slick Rick, Evan Refused, Doug Dorn, Chris Fleury, Josh Morgan, Charlie Madero, Scott V, Rex Sheldon, Andrew Wright, Gary C, Divalk, Luca Reskigno, Kate Roberts, They Call Me Badger, Joe Mack, Desert Tortoise, Jordan, Duhow, Kevin Hufford, Jason Cortez, The Good Enough Gamer, Fraser Burns, Brian McKay, Alex Martinez, April Sane, Nick Sills, Vladstein, Kyle Paul, Mark 209, Lil Bunny Fufu 89, Matt Brown, Ben Busha, Angry Ticks, Aaron Cuphall, Dan T, Dave Thompson, No One Cares, Mackenzie Wheeler, Brandon O'Brien, Chris Campbell, Chuck Schlarp, Wyman Brooks, Yamcha, Scott Brooks, Leon K, Adam Chirello, Dario Omen, Stitch, Aaron Lawson, Miklos Blackshaw, The T-Word, Michael Haig, Mr. Nick, Matt McLean, Brian Ransom, Miles from BringBackRetro.com, White Burrow, Chris Knife 007, Nathan Tremblay, Mark Jones, A-Town, Andre SJ Flash, Brian Medeiros, Tom Kite, Danny Vega, David Ray, Geek Life Radio, Morgan, Ryan Yeager, John Quack, Zane Donovan, Adam J, S2S, Jer Bear, Arpad Bodos, Ryan Kinchin, Tommy Reynolds, Defunct, Mike Maloney, Christopher Russell, Brian Bayshore, Retro Ghosty Ghost, X-Water, Vincent L, Very Cool Dude, Jay Clutch, Starl Probin, Tim Riel, The Giraffe, Jared, PB McFadden, G9PSX, Tim L, Dominic S. Thompson, Martin Greenwood, David Schnatterer, Wolverine Films, Peebs, Silver Grunion, Mr. Satan, Raging Demon, Poops Loomis, 8-Bit Bovey, Pat Duddy, MPG in Buffalo, James Anderson, Amy Gillen, Dana Wutchraw, That One Kid Nick, Potato Bob Guy, Mad Shibs, Mercury 869, Derek Jane, Rodrigo Tomazzi, Kelly, Jesse Clark, Pie Messiah, The Honest Pokemon Trainer, Brocken Newcomb, Zootroy, Mfelf, A Novel Console, Kayfabe 5150, Example Text, AJ Jones, JB Retromania, Ferdy Martinez, Troy Zuniak, Brendan Hine, Boognish, Wolfgang Darren, Ninja Lunchbox 79, Mr. Meeseeks 0406, Derpamus Prime, Seriously Ron P, Sam Wright, Retro Bismal, Andy Hudson, John Byrne 86, Paul Bullard, Joshua Davis, Stefan Fukasawa, Thor the Hammered, Kinslayer, Rogue Agent, Jafar. There's still 200 more of these. Thank you. Mick Jr., Mega Man 2 OG, Good A, Goth C, Dane, Aaron Baker, Lord Finish, K-Jam, Chris Coplian, Spencer C. Weiss, Mandingo 2021, The Saturnian, Cody Poland, JMC, Logan Hale, Doogie, Matt McLean, Pizza Power, Super Nintendudes, Nathan Freak, Mike Burks, Trevor Sevenoaks, Ryan McCowan, Kerry Waka Waka, Fob, Paul Zoe, Wolf Magic K21, Johnny CCDC, Joel LeBlanc, Raul Aguiar, I Worked at Subway, David Phillips, Corey Street, Gary Heather, Carmichael Nicholas, Squints, John DiGiazzo, Tense Sparkster, Omega 88, Swedish Fish, Nathaniel Shelley, Explode Processing, Tim Chambo, Chowdy Loudy, Joseph Gonzalez, Dan Wagner, Daniel McKee, Candido, K-Cuz, Guest House Productions, Bones02, S2 Von 5000, Titan 420, Jose E. Marco, Seth Mayfield, Tom Calvert, Chris Freeman, Kyle Bolton, Scarlett, Zonko 504, Lee Sparks, A Sharp J, Oprah's Iron Fist, Tom Maya, Adam Ferrer, Russell Aldridge, Chris Dory, Classic Crusade, Big G, Shannon Willis, Scott Roseberry, Karth from KOTOR, Sean Radford, Chance McCoy, Josh Valentini, Hammond Egger, Ronnie Sachs, PK, Jeff Bergeron, Ian Watts, Dale Baker, Joe Kirby, Captain N, Owen the Game Furchuck, Super Dave, Plucky Beast, Matthew Day, Broken Spoilers, Harmonies David, Game Nomad Misi, Tristan, Jerry Robinson, Emily Luna, Kenneth Michael Brown, Leigh Evans, Daniel Stidham, Darth Obvious, Master Boy, Leon Napskog, Trapper Keeper 1000, Daniel, Astro Alpaca, Rob Strothman, Ryan Groinus, Kaiser Dragon, Pee Pee Poo Poo Cuckoo Pants, Kyle Dodd, Jared Boschlian, Stu Bergerick, Eden Awaits 1981, Tunable Power, Barrow. I don't know. The Gray Bearded One, Dan Taylor, Swanee, Hayes 87, Lukey Mull, Danny Proudfoot, John Woodruff, Angel Cortez, Dusty Salad, Chris Meisner, Randy Barrage, Neo Nevis, Andy Spilling, Brian Spreitzer, Michael Clark, Chalupa Cabra, Thomas Simmons, Sean Byron, Rocker Dude, Saskatchewan River Pirate, What Great Gaming, Mikey NL83, I Am the Mutt, Juga, Brian Sherborne, Joseph Champity, oh God, I'm sorry, I suck at this. Just a Fish, Adam Stank, Generic Shilling, Nope Q, Beth, Rob Kingsley, Benny MB, Shadow Annex 626, Vomit the Soul, Strife 89, Thermopolis, Paul Rutkowski, Liam, Mika Aviel, Chris Daniels, Gareth Dunn, Matt Denzalo, Evan, King Caruso 64, Davy Boy, Michael Bayshore, Eric Chevinius, Matthew and Jules Forever, Holmes, Ryan Gibbons, Dan S., Adam Goldstein, Beagle the Butch, Austin Aresti, Matt High, Nemo Sandoval, Matthew Centrone, Grim Reaper, Hostile Badger, Thomas Hansen, Zach Shepard, Stefan, Andy Cunningham, Black Silver, Billy Mumphrey's Downfall, Rico Argentieri, Brian W., Chris Dickin, Jungle Dumpster, Jay Hampton, Alicia Oda, Rage Mo, Thomas G, Man of Few Words, Hans Gruber, Dylan Flora, Max Jackson M, Joseph Oblivion, Craig Sutherland, Rob Cirino, Pat Mayaz, Matthew D'Amico, and Daja 1K12. If I fucked your name up in there, consider it a badge of honor because I suck at this. Holy fuck. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to thank everybody. I'll keep thanking everybody. We'll see. When we hit 1,000, if we hit 1,000, maybe we'll see about it. Holy cow. I got to go drink some water. Thanks for the support, everybody. I'll talk to you again next week. Cheers.